directed by Brendan Rudnicki. We are talking The House on Haunted Grounds. There's a 2026 found footage movie. Now the setup is one you've heard before. A group of paranormal investigators want to kind of do their show in a notorious location. This particular one, the house of a serial killer that used to wear a kind of clown mask and kind of went on a crazy killing spree before he was killed by the police in this very house. And they go there, start to experience paranormal phenomena, and if things get a little bit too real, what will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So that is your setup, one that we've seen a good few times, but a classic setup for a found footage movie. Let's discuss what I think works in this movie's favour. So, in some ways, this found footage movie is a archetypal type of a found footage movie. If you like found footage movies, you're going to probably really enjoy this, because I think it kind of checks all those boxes that you kind of want to see. You know, it's lots of jump scares, lots of kind of like shaky cam, lots of kind of dark corners, all peppered through the movie. But what I would say maybe this movie has a little extra is the level of violence, particularly in the kind of the second half of the movie, is a little bit stronger. It's not super explicit necessarily, but it's a fair amount more violent than some other kind of found footage movies that have a similar sort of setup. Because we're dealing with a serial killer, for example, they find, just to give you an example, they find a VHS tape of the killer videotaping himself killing someone, and you know, it's because the idea behind it, it's, we see him killing, we see him like sawing this girl's head off and things like this, and there's another scene similar that happens kind of a little bit later on. So the violence here is maybe a tad more than I would say the average kind of found footage movie. And it's done to a reasonable kind of standard in regards to aesthetics. I think it looks kind of fairly sort of genuine and stuff like that. So if you want more, I wouldn't say this is an extreme movie. It's not quite that bad, but it's stronger than I would say a lot of these films tend to be. The movie also has quite a lot of visual stuff going on. So that throughout the whole film, we see loads, to be honest with you. We see quite a lot of different kind of ghosts, spooky things happening, just kind of for a flash, here and there. So this is not a film where it's saving it all up for the kind of the end. We do see quick snippets of kind of ghostly kind of goings on through the movie. So you won't feel like you've not seen anything in this film. I mean, I think one of the problems of a lot of found footage movies is it saves it up all for that kind of the final shot, and you always feel like you didn't really see anything. This one can't be accused of that. So I would say that there's that. And as such, I think the pacing of this movie is quite kind of fast paced. The movie is not a long film actually, which I think helps, but also because the way this film sort of peppers in all these kind of different sort of sequences and kind of goes, showing you stuff all through the movie, it has a decent pace to it. I will also actually think some of the acting's fairly strong here. In particular, our female lead, who is kind of one of the investigators. I actually thought she really stood out to me as being quite a legitimate performance, I would say, and quite believable in the roles. But no one here is bad in their role. In actual fact, I mean, it's a lower budget horror film. No one's expecting Daniel Day-Lewis or anything, but everyone does a decent enough job with the highlight being our female lead, I would say. Now the movie, this is going to be a criticism as well, but the movie does try and mix things up with having a variety of both handheld footage, police cams, static cameras that it kind of put up. So the upswing of that is that there is variety in what we're seeing. It's not just your typical kind of shaky cam found footage style film with just handheld cameras. It does sort of flip between different kind of shots, so we have a degree of variety, and at times it will feel more like a traditionally filmed movie than a found footage movie, which brings me to what doesn't work. And that is, I think this movie wants to have its cake and eat it too. Like, it wants to be a found footage film, but it also wants to have more a cinematic feel. And as such, there's like, we're meant to believe there's like two camera people. We have two presenters and two camera people, and there's one guy in like the van doing all the kind of the tech stuff. But then we'll see like multiple kind of like angles, and we'll see like tight shots of people talking. Well, who's filming that? You know, I know they've got static cameras, but there's too many kind of edits where there's like the camera's like flitting to different angles in the same conversation. Even in our van where we've got our tech guy, he's got like, you know, there's a camera looking at him, there's a camera looking over his shoulder, looking at the screen, and thinking, well, if that's a static cam, why would a camera be set up looking at a monitor when you're recording on this monitor? Even in the opening sequence, we have, we're meant to believe that there's these two cops that come in and ultimately find this killer. And they even reference that there was two policemen, but there's also a third person that is clearly meant to be filming them, that neither of these cops actually acknowledge, but the way it's filmed, it looks like there's a third person there. So again, the mechanics of found footage is really fast and loose here. There's also kind of a few like musical swells and things like that. So I think this movie is if you're a found footage purist, I think this movie does betray that, to be honest. Then we have to talk about the logic within the actual sort of story itself. So it's one of those things where we understand that these guys are wanting to try and capture something on film, but the movie leads us to believe they haven't really captured much to this point. So when we see overt things start to happen, and it gets quite dangerous and quite, their lives are threatened, they don't kind of get out. I mean, there's a little bit of discussion, we should leave, this is what we want to capture on the camera and stuff as well. But there's clearly danger, and they decide not to leave and not to call the police or stuff like this at certain points. They find a secret room, and bear in mind this is the room of a serial killer. There's a secret room which clearly hasn't been found by the police, and I understand maybe you'd want to go in there, but then they kind of like are handling kind of like murder weapons and like other things, and like there's a videotape and stuff, and it's just like, oh man, surely you would call the police. So there's kind of an internal logic here. Now, what I'm going to say next, some may consider a good thing, some may consider this a positive. This movie feels like it's referencing loads of other horror films. A lot of them found footage. I mean, you'll see references from Megan is Missing, the Blair Witch Project, to name but a few. And it's kind of fun, but at the same time, I think it's sort of, I think the movie it's like, haha, look, here's a little reference to this other kind of found footage film and stuff like that. And it sort of loses a little bit of the kind of the feeling of drawing you in, because it's almost like spot the reference. And again, that might be fun, and I in a way I kind of appreciate it, but I don't think it helps the narrative. So yeah, and ultimately the setup is one you have seen many times before. As classic a setup as it is, it's one we have seen a bunch of times. And I've got to be honest with you, I think the kind of the clown mask thing, it's a little played out by now. And I have to say, when we have a situation when, at the end of the movie, a character it's kind of possessed by the spirit and dons this kind of rubber mask. And it just looks, at that point, it's less spooky because it's like a guy in a rubber mask. Great. It's a kind of an average found footage movie overall. Not bad, watchable, certainly, if you're a big found footage fan, and you would at least get a decent amount of kind of things happening on screen and a few scares. And as I say, quite a visceral experience in many ways. But I think at the same time, it's sort of fails in certain areas. So, have you seen it? What were your thoughts? Leave me comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Give us your soul and join the Legion.